Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing my SSC Tuatara in multiplayer in Asphalt 9 at 2 stars. But first of all, I want to show you the pack in which I got the key for this car. This was, I think, the 5th set or so of packs that I opened, spent around 6,000 tokens, and I got the key. I had contemplated doing this or not doing this, but I ended up deciding to go for it, and I'm glad I did. Throughout my opening packs, I also managed to get some more blueprints for this car as well, and I ended up at 15 out of 48, I think, so far. I'm going to be trying to 3-star this car, because I think that would be a pretty good comparison versus my 3-star Yesko and my 3-star Rimac. So here you can see the car's stats at 2 stars. And as you can see, the top speed is very good, but the other stats are not that great. You see, when this car is at lower stars, it does not drive nearly as well as at higher stars, and you can see at the beginning of this race here, it begins to fall behind, or at least not accelerate all that fast in the beginning. I mean, the F12 TDF is even getting ahead of me at the beginning, and that car is not known for having particularly good acceleration. One of the biggest things that I found when driving this car was that the Huracans, always the Huracans, would get ahead at the very beginning, and there, I narrowly missed hitting the wall there. Very glad I didn't, because this turned into a pretty good race after all. But the Huracans get so far ahead at the beginning, and with this car, because it has such a high speed, you can catch up to them and pass them. But the problem is that this car at this rank is not able to maintain its top speed enough. And so a lot of the time, you're just running along with all of the other cars in the race. And only when you get into a long straight section, such as the one here, and there's plenty on other tracks as well, is when you really start to get ahead. So this car at 2 or 3 stars or whatever is not really all that overpowered. I did not get a bunch of easy wins in this car. It was pretty tough, and there's some cars, even high-end A-class cars, that were easier to win in than this car here. We did win this first race, beating that F12 TDF, the Huracan, and a Sheeran that got a bit of a slow start, and I'm not entirely sure why. And now we're moving on to a race on Scotland against a bunch of mostly high-end A-class cars, because we've got a Huera, we've got a Porsche 918, a couple of Porsche 918s, and then we've got a Huracan, as always. And you can see that pretty much all of them get ahead in the beginning. And that's one thing that you will notice with this car. And so I want to tell everybody who may have gotten this car in the packs or is thinking about getting it, it's not a super OP multiplayer car, really, when you get it at just 2 or 3 stars. You'll have to start up more for it to become super powerful. Now, obviously, if you know how to drive these very fast cars that might not have good nitro efficiency very well, you're probably going to have better luck than I did. I do not claim to be one of the best drivers of these super fast cars, because I know I'm not. But I don't think most people are either, so that is something to keep in mind. However, if you are able to get this car up to a higher star count, say 5 stars or even maxed out, it's going to be pretty much the king of multiplayer. It's funny how so much changes in between there, but the nitro efficiency, the acceleration, the handling all get a lot better from 2 or 3 stars up to max. And so if you do have enough tokens to spend to get this car up to the top, and you can get the key, that is going to be actually a very worthwhile thing to do, I would say, because this car is definitely the king of multiplayer when it is maxed, and even in events, there's some talk that it might even be better than the Yesko overall for events. I do not know much about that yet. I assume the Yesko will still be king on some tracks that require a lot of drifting. Say on Nile River, for example, it might be better because of that Cairo turn, where I'm pretty sure the Yesko will be able to maintain a higher speed around it, because the Yesko has one of the highest drifting speeds in the game. However, this car will likely do better on some of the shorter tracks that may not have quite as much nitro and not a ton of drifting as well, simply because it is more agile, it's easier to drive, and even if this car is not as good as the Yesko on some tracks, I feel like it will be more reliable in events as well, because one thing that I've found is that while the Yesko is fast and good and all, it's not particularly easy to get a good time in, at least for me, whereas the Tuatara is easier to do well in. In this race, we were facing a 47.55 ranked Bugatti Chiron. That is a good 650 above us, and yet we were able to keep up almost with him throughout the whole race and come in second, not too far behind him. That's the thing, if you know how to drive this car well, or if you hit upon the tracks where it is able to stay at that top speed, you are probably going to do very well even at lower stars. But it's just that those tracks are rare, and so many times I have the annoying instance where I hit hit somebody from behind, like hit that Rimac there, and lose all my speed, because when you're not in shockwave, pretty much you're not going to knock them down. And so that was one reason why I think it was a bit difficult for me, because what would happen was I would get a little bit behind in the beginning, people would get ahead of me, and I was thinking, okay, well, I'll just fly past them with shockwave. The problem was that shockwave on this car at this rank does not last for very long, and the thing is, when you catch up to and pass people, say it's a 7-8 player race or whatever, you have to be really careful not to hit them from behind, because then you will lose all your speed, go back to 210 or however fast they're going, and you're left without nitro, and your car is not going as fast as it should be. So I will say that was probably the worst part of driving this car, just getting behind in the beginning and then not being able to pass, not due to lack of speed, but due to lack of nitro and narrow tracks and things like that. Here though, I passed these guys at the very end of the race, a Rimac C2 and an Egoista, to come in first place. Probably the closest race I had with this car. Check that, this race is closer. And it shows also that if you're able to get up to speed in this car, you can catch up even if you have a problem toward the beginning of the race. This is one of my least favorite races for multiplayer. So when I'm going through here, I always spin, but then this LaFerrari bumps me weirdly and I fall off and then have to go this way. I've learned that if I fall off into the river and I'm like really close to that first ramp, to not try to go for it, because then I usually just fall into the river again, and to just go for the second one, which is what I did. And now we are into third place, and I'm going 250 or so miles per hour. This track has never really been one that people have thought of for being a top speed track, and it really isn't, because there's a tons of twists and turns. But this car, I found, can get up to a pretty good speed throughout a good chunk of it, and we're catching up pretty fast to these two people ahead of us. One of them I know is in a VLF, and we're keeping 250 or so miles per hour throughout a lot of this section, which I thought was really good. The other car is a Huracan. There I bumped him, lost all my speed. Again, that is one of the most annoying things that I faced when playing in this car, and it's probably one of the most annoying things you'll face when playing in any car with poor acceleration. Now here, I thought for sure that I was going to pass this guy, but he went on the other ramp, and then I thought I passed him up above, but he does come in ahead just by like a couple of frames, but that was even after falling into the river at the beginning of the race, so it certainly shows that the Tuatara's speed, if you can get it there, can be very powerful. And now we are facing a couple of Huracans and a Bugatti Chiron and a Koenigsegg Jesko. Now at the beginning of this race here, if you're in a car that has a very high top speed, it's best to drift at the first bit and then shockwave, then drift at the second bit and then shockwave. But as you can see here, because of this car's poor acceleration, I'm not able to catch up to them all that fast. Although now we've come into second place, we passed the Huracan, and we just have the Bugatti Chiron ahead of us. Now a very high-end Chiron is definitely going to beat this car at low stars in multiplayer, because it's pretty much better in every aspect there except for the top speed, which, as you know, with the Chiron is still really, really good. So the Chiron is definitely still one of the best, like, all-around cars in the game, and one of the ones that I think most people are more likely to have maxed out. I think a lot more people have the Chiron maxed out than have, say, the Rimac or the Jesko or other super high-end cars in the game maxed out. So that's why you see a lot of Chirons in the Class S Elite leaderboards. Here, we did beat that Jesko, even though we lost to that Chiron, and we beat those Huracans as well. So now we're into our final race in the video, in which I will give my general review about this car. At low stars, it isn't great. It's okay, as you can see in this video. Its speed is the best thing about it. Everything else at low stars is not very good. But if you can get past that, if you can deal with that, you're probably going to have some okay success with this car. But it's not going to blow your way at anything. Now, at max stars, it's a completely different story. It will pretty much blow everything out of the water. Now, if you get the key for this car through the 1200 token packs and want to keep starring it up, only buy the 900 token packs, because there's no sense spending 300 tokens more per pack for a chance to get a key that you already have. A lot of people have asked me if it is worth spending tokens on those packs. I would say yes, if you are not specifically saving up your tokens for anything else at the time, but be aware that no matter how much you spend, there's still a chance that you won't get it. But even if you don't get it, there's a chance that it will come again, as we've seen with the Jesko Grand Prix, and it is one of the best cars in the game now. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like the video if you have enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt and other games content, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!